Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Sleep and Relax ASMR. This episode we are reading the wiki page for Queensland, Australia. This was requested by a listener. Remember, if you make a request, almost always I deliver on them, so here is me making good on that one request. This is a series called ASM Articles. Basically, we pick a person, place, event, thing, whatever it may be, and we read about it, we learn about it together, and for some of you it's so boring you fall asleep, and for others you go to bed pondering and learning about something new, so it's a win-win for everyone, I think. So, Queensland, Australia, let's just jump into it. Queensland, abbreviated as QLD, is the second largest and third most populous state in the Commonwealth of Australia. Situated in the northeast of the country, it is bordered by the Northern Territory, South Australia, and New South Wales to the west, southwest, and south, respectively. To the east, Queensland is bordered by the Coral Sea and Pacific Ocean. To its north is the Torres Strait, with Papua New Guinea located less than 200 kilometers across it from the mainland. The state is the world's sixth largest subnational entity with an area of 1.852 square kilometers, or 715,309 square miles. As of May 15th, 2018, Queensland has a population of 5 million, concentrated along the coast and particularly in the state's southeast. The capital and largest city in the state is Brisbane, Australia's third largest city. Often referred to as the Sunshine State, so the Florida equivalent in Australia, I guess, because that's what we call Florida here in the USA. Sunshine State, right? Yeah, Sunshine State. Queensland is home to 10 of Australia's 30 largest cities and is the nation's third largest economy. Tourism in the state, fueled largely by its warm tropical climate, is a major industry. Queensland was first inhabited by Aboriginal Australians and Torres Strait Islanders. The first European to land in Queensland and Australia was Dutch navigator Willem Jasnoen in 1606, who explored the west coast of the Cape York Peninsula near present-day Weipa. In 1770, Lieutenant James Cook claimed the east coast of Australia for the Kingdom of Great Britain. I don't know why I wanted to say Brinton there. The colony of New South Wales was founded in 1788 by Governor Arthur Phillip at Sydney. New South Wales at that time included all of what is now Queensland, Victoria, and Tasmania. Queensland was explored in subsequent decades until the establishment of a penal colony at Brisbane in 1824 by John Oxley. Penal transportation ceased in 1839 and free settlement was allowed from 1842. The state was named in honor of Queen Victoria, who on June 6, 1859, signed letters patent separating the colony from New South Wales. Queensland Day is celebrated annually statewide on June 6. Queensland was one of the 6 colonies which became the founding states of Australia, with federation on January 1st, 1901. History. The history of Queensland spans thousands of years, encompassing both a lengthy indigenous presence as well as the eventful times of post-European settlement. The northeastern Australian region was explored by Dutch, Spanish, and French navigators before being encountered by Lieutenant James Cook in 1770. The state has witnessed frontier warfare between European settlers and indigenous inhabitants, which did not result in any settlement or treaty, as well as the exploitation of cheap Kanaka labor sourced from the South Pacific through a form of forced recruitment known at the time as blackbirding. The Australian Labor Party has its origin as a formal organization in Queensland and the town of Barcaldine is the symbolic birthplace of the party. June 2009 marked the 150th anniversary of its creation as a separate colony from New South Wales. A rare record of early settler life in North Queensland can be seen in a set of 10 photographic glass plates taken in the 1860s by Richard Daintree in the collection of the National Museum of Australia. Arrival of Aboriginal Australians. The Aboriginal occupation of Queensland is thought to predate 50,000 BC, likely via boat or land bridge across Torres Strait, and became divided into over 90 different language groups. During the last ice age, Queensland's landscape became more arid and largely desolate, making food and other supplies scarce. This led to the world's first seed grinding technology. Warming again made the land hospitable, which brought high rainfall along the eastern coast, stimulating the growth of the state's tropical rainforests. European arrival, 1606. In February 1606, Dutch navigator Willem Jasnoen landed near the site of what is now Weipa on the eastern shore of Cape York. This was the first recorded landing of a European in Australia, and it also marked the first reported contact between European and Aboriginal Australian people. The region was also explored by French and Spanish explorers, commanded by Louis-Antoine de Bougainville and Louis Vaez de Torres, respectively, prior to the arrival of Lieutenant James Cook in 1770. Cook claimed the East Coast under instruction from King George III of the United Kingdom on August 22, 1770 at Possession Island, naming Eastern Australia, including Queensland, New South Wales. The Aboriginal population declined significantly after a smallpox epidemic during the late 18th century. There has been controversy regarding the origins of smallpox in Australia. While many sources have claimed that it originated with British settlers, this theory has been contradicted by scientific evidence. There is circumstantial evidence that Macassan mariners visiting Armher Land introduced smallpox to Australia. In 1823, John Oxley, a British explorer, sailed north from what is now Sydney to scout possible penal colony sites in Gladstone, then Port Curtis, and Moreton Bay. At Moreton Bay, he found the Brisbane River. He returned in 1824 and established a settlement at what is now Redcliffe. The settlement, initially known as Edinglassy, was then transferred to the current location at the Brisbane city centre. Edmund Lockyer discovered outcrops of coal along the banks of the Upper Brisbane River in 1825. In 1839, transportation of convicts was ceased, culminating in the closure of the Brisbane Penal Settlement. In 1842, free settlement was permitted. In 1847, the port of Maryborough was opened as a wool port. The first free immigrant ship to arrive in Moreton Bay was the Artemisia in 1848. In 1857, Queensland's first lighthouse was built at Cape Moreton. Frontier War. A war, sometimes called a war of extermination, erupted between Aborigines and settlers in colonial Queensland. The Frontier War was notable for being the most bloody in Australia, perhaps due to Queensland's larger pre-contact. I'm a little bit confused of what I'm reading here. Larger pre-contact indigenous population when compared to the other Australian colonies. Okay, it's a little bit strange, but I'll continue. About 1,500 European settlers and their allies, consisting of Chinese, Aboriginal, and Melanesian assistants, were killed in frontier skirmishes during the 19th century. Casualties among the Aboriginal people may have exceeded 30,000. The native police force employed by the Queensland government was key in the oppression of the indigenous people. On October 27, 1857, Aboriginals retaliating against being poisoned and raped by members of the Fraser family, attacked the Hornet Bank pastoral station on the Dawson River, killing 11 people. This was one of the largest massacres of British colonists by Indigenous Australians. Colony of Queensland. A public meeting was held in 1851 to consider the proposed separation of Queensland from New South Wales. On June 6, 1859, Queen Victoria signed letters patent to form the separate colony of what is now Queensland. Brisbane was appointed as the capital city. On December 10, 1859, a proclamation was read by British author George Bowen, whereby Queensland was formally separated from the state of New South Wales. As a result, Bowen became the first governor of Queensland. On May 22, 1860, the first Queensland election was held, and Robert Herbert, Bowen's private secretary, was appointed as the first Premier of Queensland. Queensland also became the first Australian colony to establish its own parliament rather than spending time as a crown colony. In 1865, the first rail line in the state opened between Ipswich and Grantchester. Queensland's economy expanded rapidly in 1876 after James Nash discovered gold on the Mary River near the town of Gympie, sparking a gold rush. While still significant, they were on a much smaller scale than the gold rushes of Victoria and New South Wales. Immigration to Australia and Queensland in particular began in the 1850s to support the state economy. During the period from the 1860s until the 20th century, many laborers, known at the time as Kanakas, were brought to Queensland from neighboring Pacific Island nations to work in the state's sugarcane fields. Some of these people had been kidnapped under a process known as blackbirding or press ganging, and their employment conditions amounted to indentured labor or even slavery. Italians had entered the sugarcane industry as early as the 1890s. During the Australian Federation of 1901, the White Australia policy came into effect, which saw all foreign workers in Australia deported under the Pacific Island Labourers Act of 1901, which saw the Pacific Islander population of the state decrease rapidly. 20th century. On January 1st, 1901, Australia was federated following a proclamation by Queen Victoria. During this time, Queensland had a population of 500,000 people. Brisbane was subsequently proclaimed a city in 1902. In 1905, women voted in the state elections for the first time, and the University of Queensland was established in 1909. In 1911, the first alternative treatments for polio were pioneered in Queensland and remain in use across the world today. World War I had a major impact on Queensland. Over 58,000 Queenslanders fought in World War I, and over 10,000 of them died. Australia's first major airline, Qantas, was founded in 1920 to serve outback Queensland. In 1922, Queensland abolished the upper house, becoming the only state with a unicameral state parliament in Australia. In 1935, cane toads were deliberately introduced to Queensland from Hawaii in a poorly thought-out, unsuccessful attempt to reduce the number of French's cane and greyback cane beetles that were destroying the roots of sugarcane plants, which are integral to Queensland's economy. In 1962, the first commercial production of oil in Queensland and Australia began at Moonee. 21st century. In 2009, Queensland celebrated Q150, its 150th anniversary as an independent colony and state. The Queensland government and other Queensland organizations commemorated the occasion with many events and publications, including the announcement of the top 150 icons of Queensland by the Queensland Premier, Anna Bligh, and the creation of monuments at significant survey points in Queensland's history to honor the many early explorer/surveyors who mapped the state. Geography. Queensland is an expansive area with a wide range of climates and geographical areas. If Queensland were an independent nation, it would be the 16th largest nation on Earth. Most of Queensland's human population is on the east coast, particularly the southeast. Like much of eastern Australia, Queensland has a mountain range that runs roughly parallel with the coast, and areas west inland of the mountain range are much more arid than the coastal regions. Queensland borders the Torres Strait to the north, with Boigu Island off the coast of New Guinea, representing the absolute northern extreme of its territory. The triangular Cape York Peninsula, which points toward New Guinea, is the northernmost part of the state's mainland. West of the peninsula's tip, northern Queensland is bordered by the Gulf of Carpentaria, while the Coral Sea, an arm of the Pacific Ocean, borders Queensland to the east. To the west, Queensland is bordered by the Northern Territory at the 138-degree east longitude, and to the southwest by the northeastern corner of South Australia. The state capital is Brisbane, a coastal city 100 kilometers or 60 miles by road north of the New South Wales border. The state is divided into several officially recognized regions. Other smaller geographical regions of note include the Atherton Tablelands, the Granite Belt, and the Channel Country in the far southwest. Queensland has many areas of natural beauty, including the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast, home to some of the state's most popular beaches, the Bunya Mountains and the Great Dividing Range, with numerous lookouts, waterfalls, and picnic areas, Carnarvon Gorge, Whitsunday Islands, and Hinchinbrook Island. The state contains 6 World Heritage listed preservation areas, Australian fossil mammal sites at River Lake in the Gulf Country, Gondwana Rainforest at Australia, Fraser Island, Great Barrier Reef, Lamington National Park, and the wet tropics of Queensland. Climate. Because of its size, there is significant variation in climate across the state. Low rainfall and hot, humid summers are typical for the inland and west, a monsoonal wet season in the far north, and warm, temperate conditions along the coastal strip. Elevated areas in the southeast inland can experience temperatures well below freezing in midwinter, providing frost and, albeit rarely, snowfall. The climate of the coastal strip is influenced by warm ocean waters, keeping the region free from extremes of temperature and providing moisture for rainfall. Natural disasters are often a threat in Queensland. Severe tropical cyclones can impact the coast and cause severe damage, with recent examples including Larry, Yasi, Eta, and Debbie. Flooding from rain-bearing systems can also be severe and can occur anywhere in Queensland. There are 5 predominant climatic zones in Queensland based on temperature and humidity. Hot, humid summer, warm, dry winter, far north and coastal, Cairns, Townsville, Mackay. Hot, humid summer, mild, dry winter, coastal elevated areas and coastal southeast, Brisbane, Bundaberg, Rockhampton. Hot, dry summer, mild, dry winter, central, inland, and northwest, Mount Isa, Emerald, Longreach. Hot, dry summer, cool, dry winter, southern inland, Roma, Charleville, Goondiwindi. Warm, humid summer, cold, dry winter, elevated southeastern areas, Toowoomba, Warwick, Stanthorpe. However, most of the Queensland populace experience 2 weather seasons, a winter period of mild to warm temperatures and minimal rainfall, and a sultry summer period of hot, sticky temperatures and higher levels of rainfall. Demographics. Age and population. Queensland is less centralized than most other Australian states, with 50% of the population living outside the state capital and 25% living outside the southeast Queensland urban agglomeration. Queensland is home to many regional cities, the most populous being the Gold Coast, the Sunshine Coast, Townsville, Cairns, Toowoomba, Mackay, Rockhampton, and Bundaberg. For decades, Queensland has consistently been the fastest growing state in Australia, while Western Australia has grown faster in the 2010s. At its peak growth in 2007, it was estimated that over 1,500 people moved to the state per week, including 1,000 to the southern part of the state alone. Economy. In the 1880s and 1890s, seaports were established on the coast, adjacent to the mouth of the Fitzroy River. Broadmount was on the northern side and Port Alma on the south. Railways were subsequently constructed to carry goods for the harvest I just lost where I was reading. Let me restart. Railways were subsequently constructed to carry goods to the wharves at these locations. The railway at Broadmount opening on January 1st, 1898, and the line to Port Alma opened October 16th, 1911. Between 1992 and 2002, the growth in the gross state product of Queensland outperformed that of all the other states and territories. In that period, Queensland's GDP grew 5% each year, while growth in Australia's gross domestic product, GDP, rose on average 3.9% each year. Primary industries include bananas, pineapples, peanuts, a wide variety of other tropical and temperature fruit and vegetables, grain crops, wineries, cattle raising, sugarcane, wool, and a mining industry, including coal, silver, lead, zinc, gold, and copper. Secondary industries are mostly further processing of the above-mentioned primary produce. Tourism. Tourism in Queensland is Queensland's leading tertiary industry, with millions of interstate and overseas visitors flocking to the Sunshine State each year. The industry generates $8.8 billion annually, accounting for 4.5% of Queensland's gross state product. It has an annual export of $4 billion annually. The sector directly employs about 5.7% of Queensland's citizens. Queensland is a state of many landscapes which range from sunny tropical coastal areas, lush rainforest to dry inland areas, and temperate highland ranges. The main tourist destinations of Queensland include Brisbane, Cairns, Port Douglas, and the Daintree Rainforest, Gold Coast, the Great Barrier Reef, Hervey Bay, and nearby Fraser Island, Sunshine Coast, Hamilton Island, Daydream Island, and Whitehaven Beach. And now we have the last section of this episode. It is transport. Queensland is served by a number of national highways, and particularly in southeast Queensland, motorways such as the M1. The Department of Transport and Main Roads oversees the development and operation of main roads and public transport, including taxis and local aviation. Principal rail services are provided by the Principal rail services are provided by Queensland Rail and Pacific National, predominantly between the major towns along the coastal strip east of the Great Dividing Range. Major seaports include the Port of Brisbane and subsidiary ports at Gladstone, Townsville, and Bundaberg. There are large coal export facilities at Hay Point, Dalrymple Bay, Gladstone at Abbott Point. Brisbane Airport is the main international and domestic getaway serving the state. Gold Coast Airport, Cairns International Airport, and Townsville Airport are the next most prominent airports, all with scheduled international flights. As at 2017, the city of Gold Coast operates Queensland's only tram network. So, that was it. That was Queensland, Australia. Another probably mostly boring rendition of ASM article, but you're either asleep or you're planning to get away to Queensland. Sounds very very interesting place, and Australia is a place that I'd like to go visit myself someday, so I think Queensland is a very serious candidate for that trip in the future. If you have other questions, comments, suggestions, you can always reach the show by emailing hello@sleepandrelax@asmr.com.